Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday morning in Faith in Our Hometown, our weekly conversation about matters of faith that concern us as people of faith in the greater Joplin area. We're going to be talking a little bit this morning about kind of New Year's resolutions since we're in this new year. And one of the things we're going to be talking about is maybe taking a little bit more responsibility for our civic duty and our civic responsibilities. I'm going to have two guests this morning, Ellen Broglio and Sister Diane Langford, who are both of the League of Women Voters. And they're going to be talking to us a little bit about their hopes to kind of, remind us of who we are as people who take part in the process that we call government and the process that we call living our lives here in our area. So they're going to be right with us to talk about that right after this Mercy Minute. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and we're going to be right back after this quick break. So don't go away and stay tuned for the League of Women Voters up right after this.
Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths in the U.S., and now we have an effective tool to screen for it. A low-dose CT uses a lower amount of radiation than a standard chest CT.
Breathe in.
Better detailed pictures than a chest x-ray of small abnormal areas of the lung. A person must be between 55 to 77 years old, asymptomatic, which means they don't have any symptoms such as coughing up blood, chronic cough, shortness of breath, unusual weight loss, or any other worrisome symptoms. They must also be a current smoker or have quit within the past 15 years, also must have a 30-pack year history or more, which equates to smoking 1 pack a day for 30 years, or 2 packs a day for 15 years. People generally avoid these scans possibly due to fear of what could be found. Like many other cancers, if we can detect lung cancer early, it could be very treatable and life-saving.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning here on Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Ellen Broglio and Sister Diane Langford of the newly established League of Women Voters here in Joplin. I didn't know we didn't have a League of Women Voters here in Joplin. So why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do with establishing the League of Women Voters.
Well, I'm Ellen Broglio, and I have been really interested in League of Women Voters. They're a nonpartisan organization, and that really piques my interest in these days of divisiveness. And League of Women Voters is open to men. It's a very inclusive organization, and as I said, they're nonpartisan, and they work especially to get people registered to vote.
Right.
And then they're interested in issues that make the process of voting a more fair process. So, and they're interested in issues that are nonpartisan issues, getting things before the people to vote on. For example, in Joplin, they just, they educated the voters on Proposition B. That's something
Right.
that they do, is voter education. So.
Right. And I think that that's always important for us before we just go in and cast a vote, to know what it is that we're casting our vote for, and and sometimes we need that education from folks because sometimes things are confusing or the way they're set up. That one was pretty clear, but sometimes it's the way they word things and all that kind of good stuff. We need a little bit of coaching sometimes before we go into the booth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Diane, you want to say a little bit about yourself? It's not your first time on the show, but first time with the League of Women Voters, obviously.
That's right. My mother, who died a couple of years ago, had always loved the experience of being on the receiving end of the League of Women Voters in Tulsa. And I heard her say many times, "Oh, that's a wonderful organization." Mm-hmm. And I didn't know Joplin didn't have one until I learned they didn't have one, and we were in the building process. But Mama used to say, we all need more information on who is running for office and what are the issues that the office with the ballot will hold this year. And so I just kept thinking, now Mama must have been working on this from the other side. And here it is, an opportunity for me to be part of the ground laying work of starting a League of Women Voters group. And so it's thrilling to me to be part of this. And I have to tell you, that in the League of Women Voters, I'm only Diane Langford. I don't do sister because it kind of makes people feel weird. So I'm Diane Langford in that, and I wanted to begin our conversation here this evening with a piece from Dermot O'Murchu's book called Inclusivity.
See, I'm just going to warn you here now. You can take the title off the nun, but you can't necessarily take the nun off the person.
Oh, you can't do that, but
so go ahead. So in other words, so
yes.
this quote now.
Yes, this is excellent. And so when so many people think of why would I join something that I've never heard of before or I've never been around before, here are some ideas. Everybody desires friendship, love, and acceptance. Everybody likes to be in, while being left outside creates feelings of alienation, pain, resentment, and distrust on a universal scale. Every religion upholds a vision of inclusivity, distinguishing between those who belong denominationally and everybody else, which they claim to hold with love and respect. Tragically, we know that it is not the case amid the religious bigotry and the recurring religious violence that still endures even in the 21st century. And so one of the things I love about the League is the nonpartisanship. Mm-hmm. We don't take sides. We don't have arguments in the meetings. Nobody gets on their high horse. We're a very nice group of people, men and women. And I think just about anybody in Joplin would enjoy being part of it.
Well, there you go.
And I think this might be a good time to mention our officers, because not only is Sister Diane Langford part of the group, but she's also co-chair. And our chair is
Neely Myers.
Thank you, Neely Myers. Yes, I went blank there. And then our secretary is
Karen
Roberts. And our treasurer is Phyllis Behrens. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm. and we have about 30 members right now. Mm-hmm. So,
mm-hmm. And these women who are in leadership, except for me, are really well known to the Joplin world. They work in various and sundry civic offices in Joplin. They know the temperature of Joplin. Well, today everybody knew the temperature of Joplin. It was 23. So, but they're all well versed in Joplin world, and I think that helps a group like this to have that coming toward it in leadership.
I think it also says something, I think, very positive about a group when a group says, okay, I might have my particular take on this or my particular viewpoint on this, but I'm going to set that aside a little bit so that we can move forward together. And I think that's a great thing for a civic organization that basically says, okay, that's not, we'll still go in and vote the way we feel like we need to vote, but in the meantime, we're just going to get everybody educated on the issue, and we'll go from there and let everybody go do what they think their conscience dictates that they do, which I think is wonderful.
Right, and it's just nice to be involved with an organization where cooperation is the key. And like I said before, if we can just get away from all of this divisiveness and factionalism, it's nice to belong to a group that comes from diverse backgrounds, and we're all working for the same thing.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we do this show,
Right.
is because we want to model for everybody that you can have a conversation, even if you happen to hold strong positions, or even if you happen to hold them differently. You can still get together and have a conversation about it and try to do what you think is the best for an area or for our group of people here in the greater Joplin area, which is a wonderful thing.
Another reason that this all works, I think, so nicely is that we use the Joplin Library as our meeting place. And the Joplin Library belongs to everybody.
That's right.
And so it's not on anybody's turf, and it's not anybody's hosting. The city of Joplin hosts us at the Joplin Library. That's and nice. I think anybody would feel comfortable there. Do you think so, Ellen?
Oh, absolutely, yes. The Joplin Public Library that's open to the public, yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So why, we didn't have a League of Women Voters, and we've been doing pretty well getting by and everything. Why did y'all think it was pretty critical for you guys to start the League of Women Voters?
Well, I'd go back to the political climate that we're in right now. You know, all the divisiveness, and the League of Women Voters is an organization that can pull people together so that we can work together at the local level. You know, there's a national League of Women Voters, there's a state organization, and we're establishing this local organization. And by the way, we call ourselves the League of Women Voters of the Greater Joplin area, because there was already one in Springfield that calls itself the League of Women Voters of Southwest Missouri. So,
and so when we think of that, we think of ourselves as extending into Newton County, Jasper County, and perhaps up into the Lamar area.
right, Carthage, the surrounding area.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of that, what are some of the issues you've been talking about so far? I mean, just, you know, in terms of that you think that there's a need to educate voters on.
Well, besides starting up, which is a huge thing, you've got to get all these physical realities that connect you to various and sundry entities. We had to get a bank account, we had to get an employer ID number, and we had to reflect on exactly what were we going to use as our basic world, and that's the name we put together. But we're very interested in, first of all and foremost, voter registration, so that when we come to an election at any time along the way, the people who are out there working toward inclusiveness in voter registration will be people who work with voter registration through the League of Women Voters. And each county has a little different plan on how to do that, so we're cooperating with the county offices in order to learn how to best do that in the area, Newton County, Joplin, and Jasper County. But at the same time, I think it's just very important for each of us to claim who we are in this event we call the 21st century, where people need to say, well, I don't have to argue with you about that. We can simply agree to think and see differently, and we can enjoy our company with one another in a way that models the universality that religion is supposed to model for us.
Yeah. You know, I will say, I've heard of so many people tell stories in the last few years about having to unfriend people on Facebook and do all those kinds of things because there was so much acrimony, you know, around their conversations that they couldn't have the conversations. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how sad. Because I mean, my own family, we would have all kinds of disagreements on the way to go about things politically, or the right way to go about it, or the, you know, who we ought to elect and who is going to have the better, you know, a position or whatever. It was always interesting to me, but I mean, I never thought that anybody would have to like not be able to have the conversations or to unfriend people on Facebook because they couldn't do it that way. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Again, my guests this morning, Sister Diane Langford and Ellen Broglio, and we're talking about the League of Women Voters, the newly established League of Women Voters of the Greater Joplin area. So we're going to talk about what more might happen right after this quick break. So don't go away.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, thanks for staying with us on this January morning. Ellen, right after we went into the break, you were getting ready to say something in terms of something that you wanted to forget. Do you remember what it was, or did you forget it?
Well, I was just going to mention that something else that our group has been involved with is back in, for November 2020, we're trying to get a ballot initiative for Missouri Healthcare for All, which is also a nonpartisan nonprofit organization, and they advocate statewide for access to quality and affordable health care, and they want to get on the 2020 ballot a Medicaid expansion bill. So this is something that we'll be working to educate voters on.
And it is an interesting issue because not everybody agrees on the right way to go about getting medical care for everyone. I know
and I just want to mention the ballot initiative, getting it on the ballot. You can sign the petition just to get it on the ballot, and then once we vote, if you have been educated and you decide you want to vote against it, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, exactly.
Or vote for it. So that's
I know our bishops here in the state of Missouri, kind of kept going back and forth, knowing that there would be different people who would disagree and agree that it was the right way to go or not.
Well, and I believe they're behind Medicaid expansion.
They are. They've landed there. And the biggest reason was they just couldn't figure out any other way to continue to expand health care for some of the most vulnerable members of our society here in Missouri, which is one of the reasons why they finally went at it. They know that there are going to be some people who disagree, and again, they can't tell anybody how to vote, but they wanted to. But they went on the record as saying, they want to do this. But I think that to have the opportunity to discuss it, to be able to be more informed about it and educated about how it might work. Again, those things can't be bad things. So in terms of the education and at least getting it onto a ballot where we can decide whether or not we want to do it as a state is an important thing.
Well, and I think one of the things that probably pushed the bishops in the direction of supporting Medicaid expansion is the fact that we're all already paying for this. Whether we as a state expand Medicaid or not, we're paying for it, and so we might as well take advantage of it. Yeah. And I believe the numbers are something like 200,000 people who are working, who currently don't have insurance, will have insurance with Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
So,
and we've had some folks on from some of those organizations to actually talk about that here on the show.
Right.
And that's a good thing. So that's one thing. Healthcare for all is one of the things you want to be educating about. Okay, and the ballot initiative. What else are you kind of pushing for in the next few months as an organization?
We're going to really look hard at how to improve voter registration. I said that a minute ago, but one of the areas or one of the populations that we know will be either frightened about voting or unsure about how to, and unsure about how to get registered are the Latinas and Latinos. Now, just in case people didn't know this, I didn't know it until the last meeting we had, but now we're calling them Latino X's. Latinx, is that it?
yeah, Latinx is our group that's going to deal with that.
And so everybody who is of background that's not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, we all need to help them come on board to get properly registered for various things and to not be afraid of finding out how to do that. So we have a committee that's going to be going to various and sundry places, giving presentations of how to assist and deflate the fear that goes around with people who have not been in this country very long.
Yeah.
And who have their citizenship and are eligible to vote to get them registered to vote.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes you just don't know.
Exactly.
Well, and many of them took the citizenship exam, so they've got an idea. But sometimes something is one thing when it's a theory, and we've got it in our head one way, but it becomes something very real when they begin to actually start to take part in the political process. I'm also absolutely amazed at the number of people who have lived here their whole lives and who are not new to the country or new to the state or whatever, and they've never registered and they've never expressed their civic duty to take part in the political process, which I'm also amazed at.
Right, and that's one of the things League of Women Voters hopes to do is to, get people's attention who have never voted, and so that they understand that that performing their civic duty is really important. And
say I'm one of those people that have never done that, that I've just never gone out and voted, didn't vote on Proposition B a few weeks ago or whatever, and and I just said, well, I just don't see the real importance of it. How would you convince me, as a non-registered person, how would you convince me to register and why that's important?
Well, I'd say look around at things that are happening in our country right now, and voting is very important, and every vote counts. I know a friend of mine who lives in Michigan, who I keep in touch with via Facebook. She just posted something the other day, and a local election that she and her husband did not vote in, it did not pass by 2 votes. So she said, don't let anybody tell you that your vote doesn't matter. So they were really kicking themselves. And they're civically minded people, but sometimes for these little elections, like the last one that was only Proposition B on the ballot, you know.
It was a very slim day at
Right.
the polling place.
I voted that day because I wanted to make sure that my registration was all in order so that I could vote for the big election.
Yeah. And I just, some years I had that whole thing where I lost track of the fact that I was going to be out of town for a meeting or doing whatever, and I didn't get to vote, and that's
Right.
happened to me from time to time.
Sure.
Or some days I just get up and I forget it's a Tuesday and I forget to go do my thing, and all of a sudden, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I see somebody with a sticker. I hate wearing stickers, but but it's kind of like one of those things of, if that person had been wearing that sticker that day, I wouldn't have gone, oh my gosh, I still got to run over and vote. I still got to run over and do that.
Right.
And it's not that tough, but
But
I'm just doing it.
for our republic to work, we do need to go out and vote. So.
Yeah.
My mother, I always keep referencing her, but she made such a huge impression on all of us who surrounded her. And she never missed an election. And she always voted, now this is not an ad or anything, but she always voted in favor of whatever school bond there was happening. Although
Most of the time I do too.
but all of us were in Catholic schools.
Yeah.
And she believed that every citizen needed to have school bond elections in their head and go and take care of your duty so that the next generation would be as smart as the last generation, or smarter.
Or smarter. I keep hoping for smarter.
Yeah, but we can just do as smart nowadays.
I keep hoping for smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that those are important things for all of us to, to kind of keep in mind and in heart as we move forward. Just hearing those stories about, those folks who would go and do those things. I guess it just was part and parcel of my growing up. My mom and dad were always just pushing us to make sure that we were registered. And I remember when we had to go sign up for the first time to register to vote. Also signed up for selective service at that point in time. It was just part of what it was. It was at age, 16, doing, getting ready to do some of that, and then at 18 being able to actually vote. So it was like, okay, here we go.
Yes, but if we want to have a voice, we have to vote.
Yeah.
And if we want to keep a voice, we have to vote.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in terms of that, so you guys are getting started. So, what would somebody, if they joined the League of Women Voters, what would they expect? What would they expect to be taking part in while they did that?
Well, the first thing they would do is fill out a membership form, which is rather innocuous. It doesn't ask for any personal questions, but it allows us to know where you live, what your area of Joplin would look like, or Carthage, or Newton County, or wherever, so that we have neighborhood sensibilities.
Okay.
The other thing we do, there is a dues membership. You do have to pay dues, unless you're a student.
There you go. Yes.
If you're a student,
You don't have to.
no, that's right.
Good.
And so after the formalities of all that are taken care of, you just come to the meeting. And if you're not ready to join, come to the meeting and check us out.
So your next meeting, just to be real clear here, is coming up in a couple weeks, right? So
Monday, January 27th.
Monday,
Right.
January 27th.
At the library, the public library, at 6 p.m.
Right.
All right. So anybody's interested in joining the League of Women Voters, or
Yes,
just even finding
men
more?
or women,
Men or women.
everybody.
Yes. On the 27th, 6 p.m. at the library, at the Joplin Public Library.
Well, and one other thing, when I mentioned men being welcome as well, I don't believe we ever really talked about how we got our name to begin with, the League of Women Voters.
Well, that's good. Tell us about that real quick.
We rose out of women getting the right to vote in 1920 is when our organization was formed. So the League was formed in order to educate women so that they would know how to vote and to get women registered. And so over time, for historical reasons, we've retained that name, but those are still our two major functions, registration and education.
Well, registration and education are both important things for all of us, not just the women, but the men.
Absolutely.
So all of us as voters, that is an important thing for us. Again, my guests this morning, Ellen Broglio and Sister Diane Langford, talking about the newly formed League of Women Voters of the Greater Joplin area. So we're going to be right back after a Mercy Minute, and we'll be back to wrap up. So stay with us.
It was silly to be so dreading it so much because it was really no big deal. There was no pain afterwards. I was really, really hungry, so I got to have whatever I wanted to have for lunch. But the rest of the day I just slept, and there was no pain, and went to work the next day. Every day that I opened up my refrigerator and saw that referral on my refrigerator, I just dreaded having to go through it. And now I just kind of laugh about it because it was no big deal. And knowing it's behind me, I just don't have to worry about it. Well, my husband and I, we do a lot of riding, and we kind of cram everything into the weekends, but eventually, we'd like to, once we retire, we want to be able to go on vacations on our bikes and go riding on weekends a lot more, so we have a lot to look forward to.
Just over the break, I was sitting here thinking and wondering what it would be like if suddenly somebody said I didn't have a voice, or if I could not exercise my right to make my opinion known about the way that we run the country. That'd be kind of a sad and dark day in my life. And I don't know that I'd want to live here in a country that didn't do that and didn't allow me that. So I think it's very important that we don't take that ability to vote and our ability to take part in the political process for granted. It's a great gift, and as far as my vision, a great gift from God, and one that should not be looked askance at. And so I want to encourage all of you to continue to make sure that you're registered, to make sure that your vote counts, to make sure that you're doing that. One of the ways of doing that is to perhaps even joining the League of Women Voters of the Greater Joplin area, helping people in terms of registration and education about all these issues that really matter to us. Things should matter to us as people of faith in the Greater Joplin area. So join us again next Sunday for Faith in Our Hometown. Have a great Sunday. God bless.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.